Hey gamers, Joe the Apostate Cow here. Okay, so I recently decided that I wanted to replay through the Resistance series on the PS3. I had Resistance 2 and Resistance 3, but I had sold Resistance Fall of Man or traded it in a long time ago, but I wanted to replay all three games. So I went over to GameStop and got a copy of Resistance Fall of Man for $2.69. And the one that I got from the girl that was working there was actually an original, or an early pressing with the old PlayStation 3 Spider-Man font, before they changed it back to be more like the PS2 logo, So yeah, it was one of the early pressings of the game. I actually asked her, if she could make sure that she gets me one that isn't all scratched up, because it is an old game and might be hard to find one that's not a mess. So she did, and actually it is in really good shape, which is funny because it's an older pressing, not a greatest hits one or something. So I take it home, I put it in, and I noticed that it doesn't find a patch. Now, I know that Resistance Fall of Man got a couple of patches. A lot of that had to do with multiplayer. But they also got a Rumble patch. Because if you remember, back when the game launched, back when the PS3 launched in late 2006, there was no Rumble, one of the many missteps that Sony made early on with the PS3. They added Rumble about a year or so later, and then the DualShock 3 came out, and they fixed all that. But so there was a patch for Resistance Fall of Man. The first time I played it without Rumble because my PS3 was not even connected to the internet. And thankfully, Resistance Fall of Man is a very polished game, and I never had a problem with the single player the first time I played it without even downloading a patch. But subsequently, years later, I did download the Rumble patch, which was nice to add Rumble. But this time I put it in, and I'm not finding the patch. So I go online, I look it up. Turns out the patch is no longer available. Sony no longer supports that game at all. There is no Rumble patch. Now, all the rest of the patches had to do with multiplayer, and the multiplayer servers are shut off. I believe they're shut off for all the Resistance games, which I think is a little ridiculous that they shut it off for Resistance 3. That game came out in 2011, and people were still playing it not that long ago. But for whatever reason, Sony saw fit to shut down the multiplayer servers. But in the process, at least with Resistance 1, there's no longer a patch. So I have to play the game without Rumble. Not the end of the world. I can live with that. As I said before, the game was released polished, so I shouldn't have any issues with the single-player campaign. But this leads me into my main topic, which is the patch problem. This is an issue that has been plaguing the video game industry for a number of years now, and it's only getting worse. Now, while I said Resistance is not going to be an issue because it was polished, what about games that were not released polished? Okay, give you an example. Fallout New Vegas was a buggy mess on all three platforms at launch. It was buggiest on PS3, but it was buggy on all three, on PC and Xbox 360. Now, it's been patched up. It works fine now. I played it less than a year ago on the PS3. It's fine because it's been patched. But I want you to go on a little time travel journey with me. Let's say 10 years goes by, and it's 2024, and I decide that I want to play Fallout New Vegas on the PS3. And let's assume it hasn't been put out as a remastered version or something like that. And I take out my PS3, which already has the patch on it, but oh my god, oh shit, it's not working, it's broken. That probably wouldn't happen, it's a good console, but you never know, it could break, right? So I go out, and I get let's say Sony no longer makes the PS3 or something like that, and I buy a used one. Doesn't matter, whichever. I bring it home, but Sony's not supporting these games anymore. There's no longer online at all. There's no patches. So I plug the console in, I put in Fallout New Vegas, and it's a broken fucking mess. So now the game that I bought is now an unplayable disaster. I mean, you could play it, it's going to freeze on you constantly. Every time you enter VATS, you better hope you can get out of VATS. You better hope your save files work, and the load times are going to be, you can go make a sandwich while you're waiting for the game to load at launch. Now it loads fast with the patch, but the point is, at launch, that game, the load screens were insane when that game came out. On all platforms, actually. So, this is the problem. Longevity. The value that you are getting when you purchase a game is being devalued by these developers releasing buggy, broken-ass games and relying on patches to fix them. And in many cases, they never even get to a polished state with the patches. They just get them so that they're not completely broken anymore. But, I mean, think about it. What was the last game that you played or bought Can you even remember? Because I know I can't. I cannot remember the last new game I bought that didn't even have a day one patch. I can't think of one. Every one of these games now comes out and there's a day one patch to fix some problems that were in the launch pressing. And usually there's many more patches that follow. Now, if it's an online game only, it's a little bit more acceptable, only in the sense that an online game is going to have more of a shelf life. But this goes on with single-player games. Assassin's Creed Unity is a broken mess, or was at launch. Maybe it still is, I don't even know, because I don't play that game. The Master Chief Collection, even though the online is the major issue, I've heard that there's even bugs in the campaigns, which is baffling to me because they're not new games. All right, Drive Club, while there's the online issue, there were also some bugs. They're kind of fixed now, but there were bugs in the single player. So, and there's many, many other examples I could give. And what amazes me is that we've all sort of come to accept this. I mean, how many YouTube videos have you watched where someone's playing a 25-year-old game on the Sega Genesis, or they're playing a game on the N64? You know, right now, if I still had my copy of Resident Evil 2 or Crash Bandicoot 2 on the PS1 and had a functioning PS1, I could play those games from start to finish and not have a problem. Why? Because developers had to release polished games back then. Because if you released a broken pile of shit, it was a broken pile of shit. It couldn't be patched. And no one would buy your game after that. People would trade them in or return them and demand a refund, and they would not buy your games. You would fail in the industry. Nowadays, they get a free pass. And like I said, what does this mean for game preservation? What does this mean for the games that you buy and you want to see value in over the long term? Yeah, they'll remaster some games, but there'll be plenty of them that they won't remaster. And the only way you'll be able to play them is on, let's say, the 7th gen or this gen. Someday the PS4 and Xbox One will be retro gaming someday. What happens when somebody wants to go back and play Assassin's Creed Unity on the PS4 and Xbox One and there's no patch? And it's a broken, buggy mess. If they have, let's say, an original pressing, sometimes they do add the updates to later pressings, but not always. And even then, it doesn't matter. There's still plenty of copies in circulation that are the original launch pressings that are garbage. I am very concerned about the current landscape of gaming. Whether it be this patch issue or microtransactions where you can pay to unlock everything in the game instantly, or, on-disc DLC, day one DLC, where it's stuff they already made for the game, and your $60 purchase isn't good enough for them to give you all that content. No, you got to pay to unlock it later, an additional fee. I mean, to me, this is just unacceptable. There are so many things going on in gaming, aside from the fact that there just aren't that many good games that have come out, in my opinion, in the last year or two. It's very discouraging, and I really want to know, first of all, what do you guys think? And do you think I'm wrong? Are you going to make excuses? Are you going to say that, oh, well, this is just how it is now and we should just accept it? I mean, I guess we have to, right? It's either that or we don't play these games, or we boycott these developers. But I mean, I think some people have already started to speak with their wallets. I know there are a number of people that are gun shy with Ubisoft now, with all the stunts they've pulled. I've heard people say that, just recently I was watching a video, I can't remember who it was, but he was saying something like, I'm not buying The Division on day one. I was going to, but after everything that they've done, I want to wait on that. There are people that didn't buy Far Cry 4 right away because they wanted to wait and see what happened with that. And that's all. That's really all I want to say. Rate, comment, subscribe if you're new, and I will talk to you guys soon.